Well, good morning, Southern Oregon, and welcome to the Real Estate Show. I'm Alice Lema. I'm here with my cohort, Pete Belcastro. We're both brokers at John L. Scott here in Southern Oregon, and we're getting ready to have some rain, I hope, and maybe get rid of some of this smoke. What do you think, Pete?
Down in look what Hurricane Ida, how much rain came to the East Coast and brought there, and we wouldn't give for a quarter inch of rain here right now.
Quarter inch.
Just a quarter inch. It's not very much, but boy, it sure would help us. No, it's we're into September now. This has been a lost summer. The smoke has been here so long now. It's affected so many people, so many things, and a lot of us we get used to, but others don't. So it's tragic what's happened again this summer, and it's a lost summer. But and speaking of lost, here we are, Alice, a year later from the Almeda open chain 242 fires, the big three fires from September 8th of 2020. Here we are a year later, not celebrating that week, but looking back at that tragic day and see how we're doing a year later. So look forward to today's show because of that.
Now we have a really fabulous panel. Today, we're going to be speaking with Kristen Maze of the City of Talent, Ted Zuk from Jackson County, that would be the unincorporated parts that were affected by the fire, and Joe Slaughter from the City of Phoenix. We're so excited to have them on today. What a coup to get all three. And that's in thanks to the Rogue Valley Association of Realtors brought them all together for us today.
Yeah, and you get the perspective of what's happening in each of the areas, because each one is developing, coming back from the fire differently. And so we're going to hear that. What is the difference? Are people coming back? Is there any commercial activity? What's going on? We'll get that update today. And I think that's really important that we hear that a year later. When you think about it, I mean, after the fire and everybody, like myself, scattered, how many are coming back? Are these people coming back, Alice, or are we getting new people into these areas? And are the places that are being replaced, is it exactly the way it's going to be before? Are the manufactured home parks going to be the way they were before? You know what I'm saying? Or is anything changing, I think? Is anything going to come back different than what it was before the fire? That's really, to me, the big questions out there that I think a lot of us would like to have an answer for today, maybe.
And prices, first it was the COVID and then it was the fires, and the prices just have not, they've kind of slowed a little bit because we're finally getting a little more inventory, but boy, the prices are shockingly higher than they were a year ago.
Yeah, well, last week, the average was 485,000. So affordability is still an issue, and we'll see whether we can take care of that today or not with a year later after the fires.
So we have a great show. Pete Belcastro, Alice Lema, do not touch that dial. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Real Estate Show, folks. Alice Lema here, broker John L. Scott with my co-host Pete Belcastro. We're both brokers here in Southern Oregon with John L. Scott. And we are so lucky to have a very distinguished panel of guests today discussing the anniversary of the Almeda fire. We have Kristen Maze, the Community Development Director of the City of Talent. Welcome, Kristen.
Thank you.
We have Ted Zuk, the Development Services Director, Building Department of Jackson County. Welcome, Ted.
Thank you.
And Joe Slaughter from the City of Phoenix. He's the Community and Economic Development Director. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you.
So there's been a lot of press and stories and information about the anniversary of the Almeda fire. And before we go into kind of what's changed in the community, just wanted to acknowledge the amazing response that we had as intercity agencies. It was really quite phenomenal. And so we want to say thank you to all those emergency workers and all the folks from all the different cities and county that jumped in to really help at a moment's notice.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'd say that shortly after the fire, when we all met to talk about next steps in recovery, that as the results of loss of life and those sorts of things were becoming more fully known, we were all it was remarkable, I guess, the effectiveness of the first responders to get people out of the homes. A lot of people who were elderly and didn't have access to transportation personal vehicles, et cetera. And yet the evacuation was highly successful, given the dynamic nature of the event and how quickly things moved. The fire moved through the area. So those of us, I guess, that were picking up the pieces after the fact, I guess, as far as looking at what to do next, were just astonished, I guess, by the effectiveness of the emergency response and the first responders.
It really was phenomenal to witness, and the sheer size and scope of the fire. We had the open chain out in Eagle Point. We had something going on in Central Point, and then we had what was going on in Almeda. It was really, really intense. So here we are a year later. Kristen, let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the City of Talent and kind of how you guys are rebuilding.
So yeah, I wanted to add on to Joe's comments. It was extremely amazing what happened, and that the people got out in time. In Talent, we had over 700 homes lost, and that equals about over 1,500 to 2,000 people, residents, lost their homes. So that's just thinking of those numbers alone and getting those people out of here. And as Joe mentioned, a lot of them are elderly and didn't have transportation. And then we have another group of people who are Spanish speaking and don't speak any English. So those people were also got out of here in time and were evacuated. And to me, that's just incredible. I've been in other fire situations, and the fact that we didn't have any loss of life in Talent is incredible to me. So what Talent is doing really is we started, we kind of were in a position of flux when the fire hit. We had to hire a lot of new staff. There was a turnover in staff due to different circumstances. As a result, we went ahead and we were establishing some clear permitting processes that we needed to get done. We reached out to different various groups like UNITE, the school district, Jackson County, long-term recovery group. As we all meet, Ted and Joe and I, we all meet regularly on weekly meetings to discuss the long-term recovery of our communities. And then what the City of Talent did is we wrote an emergency order that allows for temporary emergency accommodations, and that's allowing RVs to be put on properties while people rebuild and things like that. We work with the state and federal agencies to make sure that we are funding our and moving forward on our emergency preparedness. And we've reduced quite a bit of our fees, our service development charges, and our excise tax fees. So those are a few things that our Talent has been moving forward with.
Wow, that's quite a lot. And I noticed that the building that started happening, some of the residents were surprised in Talent that they had multifamily overlays when they went to start their construction. So do you have any thoughts on?
So we are getting a lot of people who lost a single family home, and they're going forward with a multifamily dwelling, either duplex, triplex, or quadplex, and some even larger. They have that ability, and they're going to maximize their property. So it's working for them, and they're able to capitalize on it, and that's what the zoning allows.
So was that a side effect of the state change a couple years ago, where they were trying to encourage more multifamily?
I don't know if this area, so I should qualify myself. I have only been with the City of Talent for about 2 months, maybe going on 3 months. So I came in after the fire, but so it's my understanding that we have done a lot of rezone updates, and what we mainly are doing is allowing residents to be built in commercial zones in our highway commercial and our downtown commercial business district. So we're allowing a lot of mixed use development, and that's been a new change.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I know the council is very concerned about affordable housing, and that's something that we're moving forward with. We're updating our codes. We're in the process currently of updating our codes to allow for affordable housing and give incentives for that. But as far as the multifamily, I think that that was a zone that was already established, but people, they put that in place after the single family homes were developed, or people decided just to build a single family, but now they're capitalizing on the fact that they have that ability to go multifamily.
Well, that's awesome. That will certainly help.
Yes.
Ted, in Jackson County, do you have anything to add about the multiple family possibilities after the fire and how that might help our housing?
Well, if I could, I'd like to back up first and
Oh, absolutely.
echo Kristen and Joe's sentiments on our first responders. They did just an amazing, incredible job out there. We were out there the day after the fire, and just the devastation was just, as everybody knows, it was an incredible job they did with the devastation that was out there. I'd like to also say that, you know, some of the things on the community development departments that we all run, although we're not first responders, some of the things that needed to be done were the damage assessment, which was right after the fires. All the communities pulled together, City of Phoenix, City of Talent, City of Medford, City of Ashland, Josephine County, Jackson County, Grants Pass, all brought people into it, and they were the building inspectors and the planning department personnel, fire folks that were on the prevention side that weren't out on the front lines, if you will, and did a damage assessment in 10 days. It was
Wow.
a pretty incredible feat. That was over 3,600 properties that were visited. All were damaged, of course, but that was something where we pulled together, where it wasn't something that was normally in our purview what we would do, but pulled together as a community afterwards. So where we are now with the rebuild, we first had to have the debris cleanup, and that's just about 100% complete in the open chain area, which is the first step to being able to rebuild. And in the open chain, this is unincorporated county. This is City of Phoenix or City of Town. But about 50% of the damage from the fire was in unincorporated Jackson County. There were 1,132 homes that were either destroyed or major damage. Out of those, we have 159 permits that are in right now under construction. A lot of that was because the needed to get the debris out of the way first, but they're starting to come in pretty fast now. We had 77 commercial structures that were destroyed. We have 31 permits in. So that's about 40% that are under construction for the commercial, which is a good number to have at this point. We talked to other people from like Paradise Fires and Butte County and stuff. We are ahead of the curve there, so it's something to be proud about. The commercial structures, obviously, a lot of them had better insurance than some of like the manufactured home parks. So that's where you'll see that the 40% are under construction, and they also had the ability to get the jump start on debris removal, where a lot of the residential structures waited for FEMA and ODOT help to come in and take care of that. On the open chain fire, we had 49 that were either destroyed or had major damage, and 19 of those permits are issued. So we're 39% construction up there too. The rebuild's going fairly robust. Just to give you a perspective on that, for the certificate of occupancies, there's been 5 that have been issued already. So 10% has been rebuilt and people are back into their homes, at least in the open chain fire.
Wow. So getting a certificate of occupancy means they're done, they're in.
Yes.
And there's a whole lot, of course, that are permitted and are not going to get going because of shortages on materials and contractors and everything else. So all these permits you're issuing, you know, you got are not being built at the moment, but some are. and we're seeing a lot of that. Here's what happened at the other fires, and this is why I want to get your guys' comments on this, especially from Joe, maybe in Phoenix, because that's where I lived and that's where I lost my place. But it seems like when fires happen, and Alice and I both had clients who were fire victims from the Paradise Fire, from Reading, you name it. They all kind of came here, and now we're scattered again, a lot of us. But a lot of people don't come back. And I'm curious, it's encouraging to hear the numbers that you're saying that you're ahead of the other places, because they've really struggled in Paradise and places like that. So to hear that's nice. What about are you guys getting more interest? Is it the local people coming back? Have they sold some of these places, or who is doing this? Is it people returning, or what are you hearing and what are you seeing in the field actually on this particular area?
Yeah, well, we haven't necessarily tracked that. And I mean, ownership is a little easier to track that obviously than rental status. But from an ownership standpoint, kind of anecdotally, I guess, the people that we're dealing with primarily at our front counter are the people who lost their homes and are rebuilding. There are some people who will tell us, well, we bought this lot and now we're looking to build a house on it. But I would say probably in the ballpark of 80 to 90% of the people who are building houses are people that are rebuilding their houses. And no, we're also at about 70% permits out for the single family homes that were lost. So there's that 30% that we haven't talked to anybody on those properties yet. And I suspect that a higher percentage of those will be people that are buying the lots and building a house that didn't live there before. But up to this point, the single family homes mostly, I would say, are being rebuilt by people who lost the houses for a total of over 50%, I would say. I mean, there's going to be some turnover without a doubt, but mostly that's what we're seeing so far.
Well, got to take a quick break. Word from our sponsors. Please do not touch that dial. We have an amazing panel talking about the Almeda fire. We'll be right back. Well, welcome back to the Real Estate Show. I'm Alice Lema here with Pete Belcastro. We're both brokers at John L. Scott here in Southern Oregon. And we have a roundtable conversation going with some of our representatives of the local municipalities and also Jackson County. We've got Kristen Maze, Community Development Director, City of Talent. We have Ted Zuk, Development Services Director, Building Department, Jackson County. We have Joe Slaughter, Community and Economic Development Director, City of Phoenix. And right before the break, we were talking with Pete about some of the numbers of the permits and people moving into their house. And Joe, you were just finishing a thought about what was going on in the city of Phoenix.
Yeah, well, mentioned a little bit about the people who are rebuilding single family homes. Now, the issue of people who lost their residence in an apartment complex or possibly a mobile home park, the parks, I think, are, I think we've mostly been hearing that they're going to be more expensive, both from a space rental standpoint and probably from a home ownership standpoint. That people lost homes that could have been decades old, and now they're being replaced with brand new homes, and so the cost of that home is more expensive, and then the space rent is going up because now there's some major improvements being done in some of these parks that are impacted. In Phoenix, our largest park used to be known as Bear Lake Estates, 210 units in there, completely destroyed 100%. So all 210 units, and then the clubhouse, every part of the park. So the rebranding, they're calling themselves Oak Ridge now, and transitioning from a 55 and over park to a family park. They're putting in new amenities, swimming pool, clubhouse, etc., to be a family park. And so I fully expect that there will be a lot of new residents there, and that there will be a lot of the people who used to live there that will never come back. At the same time, I think that a lot of those people have left the area already and have already just relocated somewhere else anyway. So even if you were to offer that space back to them, I'm not sure that they would be interested in coming back to that same space. So I think the issue of whether we're getting new people or retaining, and replacing homes for the people who were here before, it's going to be a mixed bag. Percentage wise, it's really tough to forecast. I think from the single family home standpoint, you're going to see more of that probably than you will from somebody who lost space in an apartment complex or a home in a manufactured home park. But we're not necessarily trying to control for that. I mean, there's legislation and laws, I guess I should say, that prohibit you from picking and choosing who tenants are. I mean, it may sound cold in one way to say that somebody was displaced from a fire, so now you're not allowed to give them priority now when they're looking for a new apartment complex coming online. But that's the reality of it. There's fair housing laws that talk about who you rent to and how you select those tenants, et cetera. So it's kind of beyond our purview, but those are the kind of the realities of the situation when you're looking at leasing space to somebody.
We've done shows with literally all your bosses and different people in all three jurisdictions, and it's come down, of what do we do next? I mean, the affordability thing that we talked about, maybe making some really interesting housing choices in some of the big areas in Jackson County that are out there that were burned, as well as in the city of Phoenix. So really, it's good to hear, Joe, that Phoenix. I like the fact that Bear Lake Estates is going to be a family park. I was there. I was there, and I agree. Most of those 210 are scattered, long gone. I like the idea of a family park. The affordability of it, certainly for seniors, is going to be out, but that's an alternative, and that's kind of I like that. What about some of the other areas? Are there other unique things that we have this wonderful opportunity in all three areas, Talent, Phoenix, and in Jackson County here, to create something different out of this fire? Are you guys satisfied the way we're going, or would you like to see something different that we can do to help the affordability issue? Because that's what Phoenix and Talent were in that whole area, and all of a sudden we're going to turn it into something else.
Well, as far as Talent is concerned, we are promoting the affordability. We are working on updating our codes to create incentives for affordability. I know that it's been done in other communities, and it's difficult to do, and it sometimes backfires on communities to mandate affordability. But I think it's important that at least we make an attempt to create that affordability with developers, to encourage them to build affordable housing by giving them whatever incentives are possible, higher density, tax breaks, whatever that is possible that we can do. And I think that's something that Talent is definitely moving forward with, and we are committed to creating affordable housing. As I mentioned before, we'd like to do that in our commercial zone districts. There's a proposed affordable housing, 72 unit affordable housing unit that's being in the process right now in the city of Talent. And then of course, as Joe mentioned, we have the mobile home parks, and they're difficult because they will be going up in price. The units are difficult to find right now. They're and in our case, we have a huge park that's in our floodplain, so that's another added issue. So,
well, the reason of affordability is so big in Jackson County in the last 6 weeks, the median price has been right around that $500,000 level, and most of the sales are 350 or below 500,000 and not above that. So that's the issue that so many people, I think, are concerned about is in those price ranges of what is being rebuilt is going to be unattainable for so many people who need that. We don't have any, we need more condos. We need more types of smaller places, things like that. And that's what I'm not hearing is being proposed or even being put out there much right now, which is, I hope that will change.
Well, Pete, if I could jump in on that, from the county's perspective, we don't have a lot of areas that are multi-family zoned. That's more of a city function, and you can tell the difference between city and county function that way. But there are areas that are coming into the UGB for both the city of Phoenix and city of Talent. And I'll let either Kristen or Joe speak more on what that zoning might look like. But that's something that could benefit moving forward. There's also other things that we don't control from a community development department, and that's things like you mentioned earlier, the materials and labor, getting the contractors in. Contractors are going to build what is profitable for them. They're a private business, and that's what they do. So we can't necessarily dictate that from a local level on what you can and can't build. We can only try to help that the zoning accommodates that. There are other things out there also, though, like legislatively for the manufactured home parks. Getting a manufactured home right now is, as I understand, is 1.5 to 2 years out to even have the manufactured home come in. So there's tools that the legislators gave us some help with things like you can now use a modular home in a manufactured home park. I believe there's somewhere around 150 that are on order that will be coming to the area. Whether they go into manufactured home parks or not, it's not something that we would control, but we now have the ability to allow them. So that those are some of the ways that we're working to try and help guide the future. But it is a private sector thing to build what you're allowed to build, so we can't necessarily.
Any of you seen? Oregon has the new rules, which California is, by the way, following, where you can build multi-units on single-family lots if they meet certain conditions. Have any of the applications that you've seen in Phoenix Talent or even in the county, have any of those included any of that multi-units on single-family lots, or just straight single-family housing? Have you seen?
Well, we've seen some of that, and I think what Kristen was talking about with even some of the zoning changes that occurred in Talent prior to the fire occurring, that the city had already looked at ways that they could, I guess, add some flexibility to the redevelopment of some of these properties and allow for some higher density housing, much like the duplex, triplex, fourplex, that could be condominiumized or whatever else. I mean, trying to give some options for how people could develop in a way that's more affordable. And so that was already happening pre-fire. And I believe that both cities have been working post-fire to even kind of accelerate that process of opening up some more lands for different types of housing developments. We relaxed our accessory dwelling unit standards immediately after the fire to try to make it more attainable for people to put ADUs in as they're rebuilding single family homes. And we've seen a few people take advantage of that, but I would say that it's not a game changer in the number of units out there, but there are a few people that are building ADUs with their single family homes. Kind of an exciting thing that we're seeing in Phoenix is that by allowing for residential development in some of our commercial zones, we are now seeing 2 different complexes, one for 55 units and one for 82 units that are proposed on that commercial zone that couldn't have been allowed before that change. And so we're talking 4- and 5-story buildings in the commercial zone with 82 and 55 units. So we're looking at adding a significant number of dwelling units to our inventory, which I've always kind of said you can't get affordability without availability. I think as real estate professionals, you see that is the shorter the supply gets, the higher the price goes. So we're really working hard to just try to get housing, period, across all levels, all types, and make it available for people to live. In Phoenix.
Joe, were those apartments you're talking about, those developments?
Yes, they are apartments. Yes. I mean, it's possible somebody could condominiumize them later, but that hasn't been the proposal at this point.
Why do you think we don't have, larger cities have lots of condo developments around, and I'm always amazed that really Medford, we don't have a lot of condos developments around, and they seem to be really popular every place else. Do you know why is that? Would that help our situation too?
Yeah, I think it might. In Phoenix, we actually lost 2 complexes that were condo complexes, both about 20 units apiece, one off of Dano Drive and one off of Main Street, 610 Main Street. And the 610 Main Street project is being rebuilt. There's 20 units in there, and those are individual owner occupied, or not necessarily occupied, but owned units. So it's something that happens. As far as why you don't see it more often, I mean, it's more of a real estate / legal process to condominiumize a building as opposed to a land use process. But I think cities are working more towards allowing pad lot developments and the like that would maybe make that a little simpler for people to have shared walls but have individual ownership. So there's things we could do to make it easier. But I think also you just haven't seen land values go up to the point where these sorts of projects pencil for the developers. So that's why you don't see condos here probably quite as much as you see in a market like Seattle or San Francisco or something like that, where it's a different dynamic of who's looking for what and what people are willing to pay for. Here, they might not be willing to pay the money for it just yet because that's not what they're living in Southern Oregon for necessarily. But I think things are changing.
And those are great starter homes. So we encourage you to keep doing that. Right, Alice?
Absolutely. We're going to have to take a quick break here. We're brought to you today by the Rogue Valley Association of Realtors. We want to just mention we're speaking with Kristen Maze, City of Talent, Ted Zuk, Jackson County, and Joe Slaughter, City of Phoenix. Pete Belcastro, Alice Lema will be right back after a word from these sponsors. Don't go away. Well, welcome back to the Real Estate Show, everybody. I'm Alice Lema here with Pete Belcastro. We're both brokers at John L. Scott here in Southern Oregon. And we have a really wonderful conversation going roundtable style with Kristen Maze, the Community Development Director, the City of Talent, Ted Zuk, the Development Services Director, Building Department in Jackson County, and Joe Slaughter, the Community and Economic Development Director, the City of Phoenix. And we're recapping the Almeda fire and where we go from here. So what do you think the biggest challenge was when all of this happened this whole last year? I just love to hear, kind of looking back, each of you's perspective of what the challenges were and how we're going to move forward now.
I'll jump in on that. I wouldn't say it's a challenge, but I would say one of the things that if there is any kind of silver lining, I know who my colleagues are now. I know from the city's side who everybody is, and they know us, and we have become a pretty cohesive group. Like Kristen was saying, we meet once a week, sometimes more. We're always on Zoom meetings with each other, and I have to say that, it's nice not to be working in your own little silo, doing your own little thing and know what everybody else is doing from a regional perspective. That's a good thing. So.
Yeah, I agree with Ted that it's been, for me especially, because I'm from out of the area and have just recently got here. It's really nice to be able to connect with the other planners and all the agencies that have to do with the region. It's been really helpful. As far as talent, I don't know that we've had any challenges other than making sure that we're getting building permits out on time. And I have to say that we contract with the county, so the county is very helpful in getting that going for us and making sure that that's happening. So one other reason that we work so closely together. But I think that it's been a real good learning experience. There's a lot more to get done, and I think we're all very committed to making sure, as Joe mentioned, that we provide adequate housing, a variety of housing. I think Pete was asking about condos. And I wouldn't doubt that Phoenix does the same thing, as we allow for attached dwelling units that are actually on separate lots. So that's similar to, as he mentioned, it was pad lot ownership. So we do have versions of condos. It's not an exact condo because it's more than, you're owning more than the airspace, but there are different options in the cities and in the counties. But I think we're all very committed to making sure those options are available to everybody.
Well, go ahead, Joe.
Well, I was going to say, challenges, I think, immediately is just land supply. So, the city of Phoenix has been in the process for quite a while to expand its urban growth boundary. And that's something we're working on as often as we can find time to work on it. But obviously we've got a lot of other things going on as well. But it's critically important for the city of Phoenix to be able to expand its urban growth boundary and to bring in some more land that is urbanizable, so that we can provide for needed housing for economic development. The city of Phoenix, through the regional problem solving process, was given an area known as the South Valley Employment Center off of exit 24. And we're looking at possibly bringing in roughly 200 acres of land that's meant to be a regional employment center. So, jobs are critical. We want to be able to get employers here, and we need to get land for housing. That area of unincorporated Jackson County that Ted discussed being outside of Phoenix and outside of Medford, there on Highway 99. That's all part of our urban reserve. and we mean to bring it into our urban growth boundaries, so then we can help guide the redevelopment and the urbanization, I guess, re-urbanization of that area, because that's more the business that we're in and a little bit less of the business that Ted's in. And he's working in rural land development primarily, and we're looking at city development. So that's a challenge, but there's also opportunities that come from that as well. And then the opportunity standpoint, I'd say that we have interest in Phoenix that we've never had before. We have people coming and asking questions and looking to develop things here that we haven't had in the past. And so I think this is an opportunity for us to capture the attention of people, and then hopefully, show them something that's worth seeing here in Phoenix. And we're hoping that we're going to hit that tipping point pretty quickly here with some of these new things coming to town, and that people will be more excited to develop in Phoenix. And we're looking at all kinds of, commercial, industrial, residential, everything to just help the community across the board. And I think that this disaster is providing an opportunity to be something different and maybe a little bit more desirable, I guess, to a lot of the community in the end.
I would like to mention one challenge that we're having and that's the price of lots. People have significantly increased the price of their lots in the city of Talent. And so for people looking for land, it becomes a little bit more difficult because of the cost of development and the cost of buying the lot.
And Pete and I have been watching that happen first during the shutdown because of the COVID, and then in the aftermath of the fires. And then people pay those prices. And that's why, when Pete's saying that we have an average of $500,000 for a home now, it'll be interesting to see as all these other properties finally get developed and come online, what happens to the prices when we have more supply, especially in the affordable sector, because so many of the working, like the trades, like we have trouble getting people to do construction work, and some of the trades, so many of them live down there.
Yeah, it's really difficult. So
one of the,
here we are. Okay, we'll sum it up this way today. Here we are a year later from the fire, which was this week. And, we've come a long way when you think about the mess that was left there and the debris that had to be removed. And y'all did an amazing job watching that take place, and to see most of it, as you say, cleaned up now and people starting to rebuild. So that is happening with the Phoenix is being, coming back alive again. And where you go from here, is really going to be some very important steps. And always keep in mind, people need to have housing and home ownership and affordability. And that's the thing that I think in 12 years of doing this show and 600 plus shows, Alice, we always talk about is the affordability thing, because what happens is people get forced out of our communities. And what's so sad about this Phoenix Talent was an area where people came, and hopefully that's not going to lose it. So best of luck to you all in getting and keeping that housing and affordability thing for people who want home ownership here, or we're going to be in real trouble. So best of luck to you all, and thank you for what you're doing, because you got a big job ahead of you, and everybody's watching what's going on, and it's amazing to see what is actually being rebuilt now. And we look forward to seeing next year how far we'll come again in another year.
Well, we'd certainly love to have you back. Thank you so much, all of you. Our panel is Kristen Maze from City of Talent, Ted Zuk, Jackson County, Joe Slaughter from the City of Phoenix, just discussing the year behind us, the aftermath of the Almeda fire, and housing in Southern Oregon and what's coming. And very exciting news about the commercial, because we did lose a substantial number of businesses in all those areas, didn't we? So thank you so much. This broadcast will be repeated tomorrow on Sunday at 6 p.m. We want to thank our sponsors, the Rogue Valley Association of Realtors, John L. Scott here in Southern Oregon, and Guy Giles Mutual of Omaha Mortgage. Thanks again to our panel. We'll see you again next week. Bye, folks.